Hello and welcome back to the channel, Ginger Ninja's Movie Reviews. I am the Ginger Ninja and these are my movie reviews. Now, it's September and I wanted to do something special. I wanted to do something that I thought was unique. It wasn't, but hey, we are looking all through September at the Saw franchise. It's Sawtember, let's get into it. Now, before we do that, I do want to say a big thank you to all my new and existing subscribers. Thank you very much for sticking with me as we go through all these movies. And I also want to give a big shout out to Kerry over at Kerry Craves Cinema, who is also doing Sawtember. Make sure you check out her channel. Fantastic content and a fantastic person. Give her a sub, but well worth it. But without any further ado, let's get into Sawtember. Okay, and welcome back. And as I mentioned, we're delving into the Saw franchise, and the only way to kick it off is with the original Saw from 2004. Now, this is my DVD copy here. Yeah, a lot of special features on it, surprisingly. Look, I've had this since it came out, and yeah. Let's get into this, alright? So, directed by James Wan, this film stars Carrie Yules, Lee Whannell, Danny Glover, Ken Leung, Dinah Meyer, Michael Emerson, Shawnee Smith, Tobin Bell, and many, many more. So I finally decided to dive into the infamous Saw franchise, and wow, it's an experience. If you're a fan of horror movies that blur the lines between terror and psychological suspense, this one's definitely worth a watch. Just be prepared to cover your eyes from time to time. There are some pretty intense scenes in certain parts of the franchise as a whole, not in particular this movie, but I'll get into that in a moment. So let's look at the plot, and of course there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen this film, you've been warned. However, it's nearly 20 years old, so what are you doing? So, two strangers awaken in a room with no recollection of how they got there and soon discover they're pawns in a deadly game perpetrated by a notorious serial killer known as Jigsaw. So, directed by James Wan and released in 2004, Saw was a groundbreaking horror thriller that left a huge mark on the genre as a whole. This film and its many sequels are not for the faint of heart, as it immerses the audiences in a twisted game of survival where victims are forced to confront their darkest secrets and make agonizing choices. It combines elements of psychological suspense, gore, moral dilemmas. This movie Saw itself challenges conventional horror tropes and pushes the boundaries of audience discomfort. And it is one of those, look, I don't like the term torture porn, but it kind of does fall into that category to some degree. But let's look at the cast to start with. Now, for a low budget film, this really pulled in some big names like Carrie Yules. Yeah, he plays Dr. Gordon, a successful surgeon, and he is presented as an intelligent and resourceful individual. Yet as the film progresses, his facade of control and stability begins to crumble. And you see that in his face, like it just, you know, his worry for his family's life just, you know. And then when it gets to the end, like what he does, and that's part of the moral dilemmas and what really pushes this film, like what would you do in this situation? And that's the whole thing through the Saw franchise. Like, and I'll touch on that a little bit more with the directing and the writing and also the effects. But look, there is, like, Carrie Yules is a great actor. However, I found his character to be a tad whiny, and he looked like he was about to die most of the way through the movie. Like, that lighting did not do him any favours. Lee Whannell, he does a fine job as Adam, and he is also the co-writer of this film as well. You know, and he does a really good job portraying a hapless victim, and I say hapless because his character actually evolves into a more complex character with his own secrets and motivations and reasons as to why he's there. Danny Glover is a vengeful cop hunting Jigsaw and who he suspects is Jigsaw, Dr. Gordon. More to that later on as well as we get into the franchise. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Shawnee Smith, oh my God, as Amanda, one of Jigsaw's surviving victims. Like, I'm not going to get too much into it because I do touch on it later on, but the way this film sets up certain people in certain ways is just amazing. Dinah Meyer, her character is again set up for future films. And Tobin Bell as John Kramer. Well, what can you say? This film wouldn't be the same, this franchise wouldn't be the same without John Kramer. Okay? Without Tobin Bell's portrayal of John Kramer and the way he does it, the voice, what he brings to the role, he embodies that character and makes it like frightening and believable all in one. Now, the directing and writing. Look, the film's direction and cinematography deserve a huge shout out. James Wan's knack for building suspense shines here. The dark, dirty settings, the eerie music, they all contribute to an atmosphere that's dripping with tension. The film's visual aesthetics play a significant role here as well. The grimy and dilapidated bathroom setting, it sets a tone for the entire movie and it evokes a sense of confinement and claustrophobia. Cinematography as well, like this, the lighting, I mentioned it earlier where it looks as though Dr. Gordon, Cary Elwes, his character looks sickly. He looks like he's about to die half the time. That lighting is, these color palettes that they've chosen, the tight framing, it all works in ways to amplify tension and fear. The editing of this movie, it plays with your perception of time, the way it ties all together and the way it ties in, and it mirrors the victim's desperation. The jump cuts and quick editing, close-ups, they all heighten the intensity of the character's emotional turmoil. Now let's get into the effects. Now, Saw is notorious for its graphic scenes of violence and torture, as I mentioned, often referred to as torture porn. This film intentionally pushes the boundaries of what audiences can stomach, featuring gruesome traps. One of my favorites, the reverse bear trap. You don't actually get to see that in motion here, but you get to see what it would do if it did work. And I'm going to touch on some of this in a moment because it's interesting that this film falls under the torture porn and Gorno. Look, I'm going to talk about that now. Rewatching this film, Saw has a lot of gore in it. It's known for it, but this film actually doesn't have a lot of blood and guts in it. It is more a psychological horror film. You do see a little bit here and there. You have the body lying in the middle of the bathroom where it looks as though the brains are blown out. But that's real. There are a couple of other scenes, but there's nothing too intense, nothing like future films where it really pushes the gore in your face. Personally, the effects in this were a little bit tame when you compare it to later entries in the franchise, but we'll get to those ones soon enough. Rewatchability, now that's a bit of a tough one. The twist is really what sets this movie apart. I mean, who saw that coming? Like, really, no one that I know saw that twist coming. If you did, hey, good on you, but, for me, it's in line with the twist ending of movies like The Sixth Sense. And when you see it, it doesn't really hold the same impact on repeat viewings. However, there is a slight caveat to this. The way the series intertwines through consecutive sequels in a way that I don't think has been done previously in any other film franchise is, at least not to this degree, and I mean, I could be wrong with that, but I don't think I am. It makes you, after you watch several in the series, like, you tie things back and you do want to go back and rewatch it, and then when you rewatch it, you see what's happened, where they've laid these little bits of information along the way. So really, really did enjoy that. So overall, Saw is a masterful exercise in psychological horror that stands out for its gripping storytelling, the inventive traps, the exploration of human morality. Its graphic content and somewhat shocking imagery might be too intense for some viewers, but those who appreciate thought-provoking horror, or a thought-provoking horror experience more is probably a better way to describe this film. It's, for me at least, it has that element in it, like it makes you think, what would you do in this situation? Would you push yourself to survive? Do you have that will to survive? Which is what this is all about. It's John Kramer, Jigsaw, his game that he's playing is to make people want to live. But look, I think if you appreciate that sort of horror, or that sort of horror experience, you'll find a lot to analyse and discuss in this film. The film's impact on the genre is undeniable, as it's redefined the boundaries of what horror can achieve, leaving an unsettling imprint on the minds of audiences worldwide. For a score, for the very first Saw, I will give it an 8 out of 10. It's really good, but like I said, it probably loses a point on the rewatchability factor, but it gains a point on, the overall. But yeah, it's good, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. So there you have it. That is my review of Saw from 2004. We will be back again looking at Saw 2 next, followed by Saw 3, all the way through. Now, I'm not 100% sure if I will do Spiral. I might do it. Spiral's one of those ones, yes, I know it's part of the franchise as a whole. It doesn't, for me, sit well in the Saw film, but then again, I've only seen it once before, so maybe if I have time, I'll put this in, but we're definitely getting all the way up to Jigsaw, and this is all leading up to the release of Saw X, Saw 10, whatever you want to call it. It's coming out soon, so anyway, make sure you do like this video, it'd be much appreciated. Subscribe to my channel for future content if you haven't already, and please, have a great day. Bye. The little jump cuts. Actually, I'm going to edit that out.